We're here.
Let's go. Okay, listeners, you don't know what you're seeing right now because you're listening. It's a podcast, audio podcast. You don't know. But for the people who get to use their eyes, they're watching on YouTube, or maybe you're seeing this on a social media clip or something. Look who it is. It's me, it's Sharpie Charlie, and we have a special guest. Be prepared for just some fun special guest shows nowadays. You know, we got to change things up. It's about to be a new year. Scary things are about to happen, but we'll be here at SOB talking about football, having a good time, spreading the love. We are here happy to have for the first time, and as long as I don't put my foot in my mouth too much, maybe not the last, a Shady Gang. Please give it up for Theo Lloyd-Hughes.
Hello. So good to be here. I'm wearing sky blue as I imagined was required. So thanks so much for having me.
We appreciate you, following the unsaid but said, requirements.
A shade of blue, I suppose it needed
He
to be.
got it.
Sky blue.
He gets the show.
Yeah.
Gets the show.
It's fine. Sky blue is good too.
Professional here, obviously. Well, thanks for coming on. I would like to start off with something simple, easy, get to know you a little bit better. Whenever we have a guest on for the first time, I like trying to get to know our guests probably a little more than sometimes our listeners like, but get over it. So Theo, how did you get into sports journalism, into this whole game that you're in now?
I was always into journalism, so I think it was the sports side that took a little bit longer to cultivate. I actually did my first soccer podcast was in 2012, which maybe ages me a little bit. I was still at university back then, and some friends and I, we just kind of we liked the way we talked about football and thought someone might want to listen. It's not sort of totally different to how most people start their podcast, right? That was a very short-lived podcast. I think we did one summer tournament in 2012 and then maybe another summer tournament, something like that. It was kind of like just mates hanging out in the summer watching the Euros or the World Cup or whatever it was. And then I did more journalism at university. Actually, kind of like post university, went into work for in the music industry. So I actually like transitioned into music journalism, having kind of like flirted with like university paper, football reporting, and stuff like that. And then after sort of many years trying to work in PR and journalism within the music industry world, depending on like which one I was kind of progressing in further. I also worked in publishing for a minute. I then came back to writing about sport in 2019, and then kind of put more behind it 2020, 2021. And now I'm here. So it's been about 5 years for me to be like focusing on soccer. But it's been 12, 15 years of writing about football or talking about football in some way, shape, or form.
I gotta ask. I heard you say soccer. What was it? When was the first time that like you started like adding that into your lexicon?
Great question. I mean, I'm very pro lexicon. I'm very pro vernacular. I'm not like, people get stuffy about it. I'm not stuffy. Life's too short, and the English language is too nebulous and beautiful to be policing this kind of thing. I actually find myself obviously working in the United States, living in the United States. I find myself going back and forth pretty sort of willy-nilly, and it doesn't rub me, or I feel like anyone I know with a right brain kind of up the wrong way. But I would say, to go back to your question, it must have been around 2019, or I think the Women's World Cup in 2019, hanging out with a lot of Americans then, and taking that tournament seriously, taking that team seriously, and kind of like maybe that sounds a bit pretentious, but maybe like the word soccer became serious around that kind of USA women's team winning that World Cup. And not that they hadn't been serious before, but I think maybe for me and my,
I like it, but that I just like the link that it earned it. Like, okay,
yeah,
I'll take you Americans seriously enough that I acknowledge the word soccer.
yeah, I think, I grew up watching England women's football, like here and there. There were players that would bounce off the page. The 2015 World Cup, the 2012 Olympics were like these kind of standout moments. I think Canada, USA, at London 2012 in general, I think was a standout moment for someone like me growing up in London, seeing those nations come over. Japan do amazing at the 2012 Olympics. But I think my appreciation, for lack of a better word, and obsession with, and then kind of like really dialing into a tournament for the first time was the 2019 World Cup. And so I think that's when that tournament really like switched in my head. Some of those teams, some of those players, the game of soccer, if you like. I think I didn't grow up with the 99ers, right? I kind of knew Brandy Chastain. I knew that clip. Yeah. But I didn't have like an American soccer culture. Bend It Like Beckham. They kind of like at the end of the movie, she goes to America. So that was kind of like I knew American soccer was like a big deal. And the women's team were very good, don't get me wrong, but they were kind of always seen through the lens of like beating England and then like not losing my attention. You know what I mean? Like when Great Britain or England would go out, you'd then kind of move on. And now, I could watch any two nations. Name two nations. I could watch them play. But back then it was more like, okay, how is England doing in the tournament? And then you'd taper off.
That's respect. I mean, honestly, on my end, when we started Shades of Blue, the reason why I brought Tom in was because I knew we needed to cover the women's, but I didn't want it to be like a bunch of guys floundering, trying to learn the match. We needed somebody who could lead the conversation, help us if we needed any. And obviously, with his connections with the people that he knew, it just put me in a greater position to connect with other people who that is their life. That is what they live, eat, sleep, and breathe. And shout out to Shea Butter FC. I was able to hang out with them for the Women's World Cup. I changed my sleeping pattern and everything for it. And I just dove into it. And I didn't care if I sounded silly, if I sounded stupid. I would just ask questions. I would talk. And they were always so great about it. And I am now at that point where I was just watching Manchester City. I was only specifically watching that league, but now I'm watching women's leagues all over, national team, and I love it. And I feel like that's the best way to appreciate the sport is just appreciate the sport, not trying to worry about if it's men's, if it's women's. We've had a few amputee soccer players on, and it's just really trying to push the culture of the sport and show how many different ways this game can be appreciated.
Totally agree. And yeah, I love that. And yeah, I agree. I feel like you just need that spark and then you just get lost in it. You know what I mean? It's so easy to understand someone's joy, someone's talent,
I think we had a guest on a couple weeks ago, and I think it was Tosin, and he was just like, the thing about the sport is it's always on. Like there are no off
every
days.
time zone. Yeah.
Every time zone. Like you wake up in the morning, you can find this sport. If it's a summer, there's a tournament happening. If it's winter, it doesn't stop. And so that part of it gives you the access. And like Crunk was talking about the World Cup. I watched that. I've always watched U.S. women's national team, right? So like I remember 2011, 2015, 19. But what I got into because of this show was European soccer, European women's soccer or football. And so
you start saying football. It's kind of like the exact
I
flip.
flip it. Yeah, literally. Because I'm like, well, that's how they say it. So 2 years ago in the Euros, England makes that incredible run. I'm connected now because I'm watching the City women play. I'm watching Lauren Hemp. I'm watching Chloe Kelly. Like I'm seeing this Lucy Bronze. Like, and then you start watching all the players from the leagues, and it's just like, wow, like this is truly a great sport. And now I get to like have an opinion about like we'll talk about it later, like countries wise, like which countries play the best football because you have all this talent around the world. And I don't know. I think it's something. It really is like the game that, as a born and bred Southern American, like I love American football, right? Like it's my everything. And I definitely found myself wanting to watch more soccer matches. Like the game it flows so much better for me now. No commercials. Like from a foundational point, this is like took years to get into. But I'm like, yeah, like I don't give me 2 hours so I can watch a whole match and be done, or an hour 55 minutes. You can't beat it. Can't beat it at all.
Can I just follow up on the Southern American football thing? So where are you from in the South?
Virginia.
Virginia. And did you grow up like with like a high school team or a college team that you followed or your family followed?
Yeah, so high school football was big in the area that I'm from. But the college team was like Virginia Tech. So like Michael Vick, he played there, and then you just watch all the other big time college teams. Yeah.
And there's 100 years of history, right? And
for sure. Yep.
And I feel like the fandom that you experienced growing up reminds me almost more of like the European, South American, Latin American kind of soccer fan bases.
Yeah.
And so I do think exactly going back to this idea that like soccer's joy is for everyone, or it's almost soccer's joy goes beyond soccer, right? Some of those connections you have with American football in Virginia Tech, or those connections with your family are the same things that people fall in love with the beautiful game. So yeah, I love that, because I think anyone from any background, from any walk of life can fall in love with football, or sport.
All right, this has been very poetic speak for the last few minutes, and here I come to dumb it up with this next set of questions. So
balance in all things.
It's a pair of overrated and underrated things about football. Let's start with what you feel is overrated about football, soccer.
So I was going to bring up something which isn't like necessarily totally football related, but I wanted to bring it up because I know you Man City lads. So I was going to bring up Oasis.
Yes. As overrated or underrated?
As overrated.
Oh.
There's some credence to this. I'm not opposed.
Not bad. Like, don't get me wrong, Oasis slaps, but it's overrated. It's like it's got too far. We've got to like dial it back a little bit. The last the tour prices, all that nonsense.
See,
hysteria.
It
turned me off.
It sounds like a broke boy over here. It sounds like you couldn't afford the tickets and now you want to hate on them. Obviously, this is jokes. These are 1,000% jokes. I'm 100% potting. I apologize. You're being very serious, and I decided to be silly.
No, I love it. But yeah, that was something that I was when I knew you Man City lads invite me on. I was like, oh yeah, Oasis probably overrated.
See, here's the thing, right? I have no connection to Oasis. They're just the guys who, like, I know who they are.
Go to Man City,
they could guys that go to Man City games, had a great albums back in the 90s, had a bunch of feuds, just really immature brothers. And now they're about to make a huge killing on this tour. So, just it's the white man story. Yeah.
We know what songs to like listen to, but
yeah,
to be honest, if it plays, I'm gonna be that guy who is like, I'm LeBron James with it. I'm lip syncing it like I know it. But if you actually look at my mouth, I'm not actually saying the words.
Quick anecdote on Oasis. When I was 21, I like took buses across the United States because you can't really like rent a car at that age. So the cheapest way to get across the country was to bus. Me and my friend from England, we took buses across the United States. And I remember, maybe it was a train or a bus, I forget, but we pulled into Chicago and there was a busker singing Wonderwall. And it always stuck with me as one of those moments. I was like, damn, the buskers are singing Oasis out here in the United States. Like, I was expecting, like, I don't know, John Denver or like,
I can't get away from
Beyonce or like, I don't know, some like big hit, John Mayer. I don't know. Name a track. Name a pop star.
Wonderwall.
But Oasis, the buskers in Chicago be playing Wonderwall. It was weird.
They truly are global.
Oh yeah, exactly. And that was 10 years ago, but it always stuck with me. I was always like, that is not what I expected.
Hoping for a nice American experience when you first get there, and it's just like, hello, still here.
Yeah, still here. Yeah.
Okay, well then I'm very intrigued with what you think is underrated about football now.
Underrated in the United States at the soccer matches, you can drink in your seats, listeners. Shades of Blue family all over the world. do not take it for granted. Drinking in your seats is something you cannot do in the United Kingdom. I was in Washington, D.C. on Saturday at the NWSL semi-final. There I was with the luxury of drinking in my chair. It's ridiculous.
Isn't it great? It's so American. It's so beautiful. And it's actually trickled down now to like college events. Like they're
right,
adding
because it's funny that because that almost again links UK football and college. They both used to have the no drinking thing, but obviously the colleges have rolled that back now.
Yeah, too much money not to be made. This was America. It's capitalism.
Right. But
I mean,
it's crazy that in the Premier League you can't go get a beer in your seat. Like the American mind just cannot.
Was it ever? Because this is the part I haven't Googled, so I'm going to ask you this as someone who was living there. Was it ever that way? Did they make a change? Like, what was the story behind that? Because I never looked it up.
I've actually never looked it up either, but my guess would be it was the late 80s, 90s, kind of like, so, you know, long story short, for, you know, those that probably know some of it, but like in the late 80s, 90s, you have Hillsborough and Heysel and these major kind of fan disasters for all sorts of reasons. Obviously, the fans were not to blame. These are, you know, organizing mass events is a skill, and you need to get skilled people to organize a mass event so you don't have tragedy. But anyway, you have these events and there's a huge kind of pushback against fans, right, and hooliganism in the UK. And, you know, for a while, English clubs couldn't even play in the Champions League. They were banned because of the behavior of the fans. I think 4 years between, I mean, I don't have off the top of my head, but like between like I want to say like 86 and 1990, English teams were not even allowed to play the men's Champions League. So yeah, that's my guess. Is it's around that time the English, the FA were probably like, just no more beer in the seats. We're just taking it away.
Yeah.
So that's my guess, but I don't know.
Those thugs, they ruined it for everybody. It's terrible.
They ruined it for everybody. People.
I did see a report recently that like it might be like tested on like lower level soccer to like see if it can come back and how it works.
I think they've tested it in League One and they've tested it in the WSL as well. They're kind of like flirting with it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, hey, a pint and a ball, it goes together, you know.
It really does. It's a great combination, but you know the energy is different over there, so I do understand if they decide to, you know, keep things how they are. But I when it comes to money, obviously it would be a big money maker for clubs.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, I paid something ridiculous, like $14 or something at Audi Field. I mean, no shade to Audi Field. Like, I had a lovely time, very nice staff, you know, facilities, good, you know, great work, sold out crowd. But, you know, paying $14 for a Tseki's or whatever, you know.
Right? At least make it like
so discouraging
or something.
Yeah. No, it's always bad. It's always like the worst beer on.
But you do it. Like, I'm gonna do it.
I have to time my life.
You got to commit. Yeah.
Am I not gonna drink? What are you doing?
It's so funny you were at Audi Field because I literally live right in Northern Virginia. I just couldn't.
Did you go to the game?
I couldn't get a ticket. I couldn't make
it. I mean, they've suddenly blown up. Yeah, no, I feel that.
Yeah, they sold out so fast. It was faster than I was ready. Because I would definitely like figure out a way to do it. But that match, and I think that kind of gets us into our next topic. For those who don't know, the NWSL finals coming up. We have the Washington Spirit taking on, you know, Orlando Pride, the top two teams in the league this year. So Theo, as someone who covers the league, what are your thoughts overall about the season? Like, you know, big storylines, things that surprised you, you know, just your overall take from this. It was truly an amazing season.
Amazing season. Yeah, I think it was a really fun whiplash to last year where like the vibe or the sort of the mood board was like chaos. Like, everyone is good, everyone is bad. Who will win this league? Like, does anyone want to win it? Who will, like, 13 teams can make the playoffs with 2 weeks to go. Like, that was kind of fun, but I almost think it like it actually meant that there was less, the playoffs were less exciting in a way because the regular season was so juicy and kind of anyone could beat anyone. And I think this year we sort of saw a huge swing in the opposite direction, which is like, oh, we actually have good teams in the NWSL. And it helps that the league had a bigger break for the Olympics this year. And there was no regular season games during the Olympics. So obviously last year you had the World Cup, which disrupts a lot of people's team builds. You drop points when your World Cup players are away and stuff. So this year there was a lot more. The league was sort of treated a little bit more seriously by the league itself in its scheduling, and so I think that combined with some teams like Orlando, Washington, Kansas City, and Gotham sort of having their shit together, for lack of a better phrase, basically means that you actually saw some really good teams develop some serious. And actually, I want to shout out the Courage as well, because they don't really get a lot of love. And actually, amazing coach, amazing philosophy down there. I think, if Caroline had been more fit, or Courtney Vine, had maybe been kind of hit the ground running more, got more minutes, like we could have seen more from them. But really, really fantastic football team in terms of, again, consistency, philosophy, what we're seeing on the pitch. But I think really it was this kind of, the season was swept up in those top 4 teams, right? And I just think we've never really seen an NWSL with that many sort of titans. Like, I think thinking back to when I first started watching, when the North Carolina Courage was so good and the Thorns were sort of the next best thing, but it really felt like they were just so far ahead of the pack. And you could argue Orlando kind of did smash the kind of contenders in the regular season, but I just think, Kansas City, Washington, Gotham, and I think this semi-final weekend kind of proved it. Anyone could have won this championship. All those teams were very deserving. They were all fantastic. They delivered 2 fantastic games of football. And so I think, the kind of the lack of parity, the rise of greatness, and we'll see, will this be dynasties? Time will tell. I think the other kind of cool thing about this year was the expansion of the international roster spots, and obviously like phenomenal players from Africa coming into the league and getting, recognition from Ballon d'Or. Seeing Barbara Banda on there is really cool. And so I think, for Americans to have some of the best African players in the world here, balling out, setting records, I think is something really, really cool. And this season will always be remembered. I know she didn't make the final, but I think Temwa Chawinga's season this year will just always be iconic.
Yes.
One of one. You said Ballon d'Or, and I just have to ask. I understand that it's about club and country, but how does Naomi Gurman, the Secretary of Defense, not make it? I saw that and I kept reading. I was like, wait, somebody's name is missing that played, and I don't get it. Like, from your vantage point, can you explain it, or were you as miffed as I was?
I was as miffed as you, mate. Like, it's ridiculous. She's a top 5 player in the world. I actually vote, so I don't vote in the Ballon d'Or. I'm not that qualified, but I do vote in BBC Women's Player of the Year. I have a vote, and Naomi Gurma was in my top 5. I'll give you the exclusive. My top 5 were Gurma, Banda, Bunny, obviously, Jackie Ovalle at Tigres.
Oh yes.
And who was my number 5?
No Bonmati?
Bonmati. There you go. Thank you.
Okay, I was like, whoa,
she was in there. She was in.
That would have been the craziest thing. Like, she wasn't in your top 5. Like,
I think she was still. I think Bonmati might have still been 1. It might have been Bonmati, Gurma, Bunny, Jackie, and then Banda at 5. Maybe Banda was 4. Maybe flipping Jackie and Banda. But to answer your original Ballon d'Or question, I got no idea. I think the NWSL, there's a bit of NWSL tax. People just don't, in Europe, where a lot of these voters are, just don't watch the league because of the time zone. And maybe the big reveal is that maybe they just weren't really watching the Olympics either, because obviously she was so good in the USA shirt. You couldn't have avoided that.
With the other Paris. Players though, like, she was there with them, so that's the problem. Like, did you not watch?
And obviously Nair gets the vote, which was equally weird because you never see goalkeepers nominated. So to say Gurma's a defender, maybe that's what held her back. Well, Nair was on there, and you never see goalkeepers. So it was very sus. And at the end of the day, my other going back to overrated, underrated is individual awards are completely overrated. We love to talk about them, but they're all meaningless. The people that get the vote are honestly great journalists, and I love some of those people I know who do vote on this kind of thing. But you're just never going to get 30 people to decide who the best player in the world is. That exercise does not exist. The idea that there is a best player in the world, the concept doesn't exist at the end of the day. So it's a fun debate, but I kind of I shrug at individual awards, to be honest.
Yeah, it's all for bragging rights and clout, and like you get to say that you won it or you were nominated. I know I thought about this because ESPN put their ranking on I think last week, and
Yeah, it
Grandma
was
was
better.
2. Yeah, it was more comprehensive, right? Like it encapsulated the world. You don't just leave out the North America. Like it matters, especially when
Yeah,
you're talking about
definitely
women's
not.
soccer.
Maybe not enough Mexicans on that
Mhm.
list or players playing in Mexico. I don't even think Jenny Hermoso was on there. I think she's not even
I
on
think she
there.
was low. I think she went
Oh,
either
she
she
was
was
on it.
out, or she might have been like
Okay.
either super low or like she dropped out. Yeah.
But I definitely want to shout out, Charlene Corral, who's actually playing right now, tonight in the other semi-final, though I think Pachuca are going to go out. But she's won the Golden Boot in Mexico like 3 years in a row,
Mm.
banging in. I'm not even joking, like Chewinga-esque numbers. I don't have her numbers to hand, but
Yeah.
like she has 19 in 20 games this year. I
Amazing.
think she had like 35 and 40 last year. Like I'm saying, like crazy numbers. And Corral is just never getting any love. And she's 33. She came up during for the Mexican national team, in the early kind of 2010s when again women's football just wasn't where it is now, and Mexico definitely wasn't where it is now. And I think she's kind of like a player who I think is going to kind of go off into the sunset without a major moment
Mhm.
for the national team, and probably not like necessarily a major moment in Liga MX Femenil either. And yeah, she just deserves so much love for how consistent a goal scorer she is in Mexico. Like it's very, very hard to do to be that good at scoring goals, and she is banging them in. So
I think
Charlene
people
Corral.
they lose sight of I know when I first started watching Premier League, it was a big deal. And it still is to get 20 matches, 20 goals in a season, right? Like
Right.
20,
That
38 is
number is
huge.
like it's
That
elite.
means something.
Yeah,
When you're talking about 0.9 goals a game or whatever, like 19 and 20, 22, like it doesn't make sense how like Erling Haaland wreck things. Like, like these players are now coming along. It's like, wait, you're changing the whole paradigm of how we look at it. But it's like, no, to get like 20 goals and 10 assists is crazy to be that productive. So yeah, I hope that, it kind of goes into like what else on the outline, like the growth of the sport overall in the world. And I know Crunk, this is kind of your question.
I actually hold on because he did with talking about
jumped
players
ahead.
who don't get attention and recognition and might not be able to. Marta's now at a chance to be able to get hers in the NWSL final, and Orlando Pride. It did hurt my heart that we have a legend like Marta. Obviously, the way that Orlando Pride play is super fun. And then they were playing in calling it a half full stadium is being nice, honestly. And then you're seeing all these other teams selling out their stadiums. So I don't get what is missing. Is that just Orlando? Did they I don't know, but let's not stick on sad. What is a good story or a story that intrigues you? I mean, I kind of threw Marta at you, but I will allow you to pivot and talk about anything. But for this NWSL final, what is a storyline that intrigues you about it?
I mean, Marta, I think is definitely like when I talk to people in the game, working in the media side, the players, fans. Like, I think Marta is like she hits all the like media just like cannot believe that they're getting to cover her in a final. Fans can't believe that, like you said, she's getting hers right in a league she's played in for what's this, her 8th season, and she only just like scored her first playoff goal and is going to her first final. So I think, I mean, it says maybe more about Orlando than it does about her. But even like, I think the biggest Marta fan can say that the way she's played this year is the best she's looked in probably 5, 6, 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's any Marta, like even the biggest Marta stan can say that she's really managed to find another gear at 38, which is incredible. So I think Marta is going to be really interesting to see. Don't get me wrong. I do, something I think is really interesting, which I think everyone's kind of forgotten about, goes back to the Spirit. And I don't really know what the storyline is here, but it was interesting because I bumped into him in the pub after the semi-final game. But Adrian Gonzalez coached the first half of the year for the Spirit. And I went to the pub after the Spirit game, the brewery right on the river. And Adrian Gonzalez was just there with his family, having a drink. No one, not a single soul was bothering him. Like he could have been anyone. And I was just like, that guy did an incredible job up until July, put the Spirit in the second spot. And obviously Jonathan Heraldez came in and maintained the standard. But I do think he's an interesting story. Maybe not for this final, but like, what happens to him? Right? Will he go on and become a head coach? Will San Diego Wave try and pinch him after the final? Like, I think we there's kind of an interesting narrative of like, and Jonathan Heraldez is obviously clearly an incredible coach. I'm not undermining him, but it's just interesting that there is this assistant coach that did an incredible job. The players seem to absolutely love him. He seems really down to earth, humble guy. And he's kind of just like this secret weapon that, like I said, I was in a pub, so wall to wall Spirit fans, line at the bar. You couldn't get a drink for 10 minutes. And the assistant coach of the team was just sitting there, could have been anyone. And I was like, this is a man, this is the ultimate spy. I was like, this is a coaching ninja. So yeah, I do think he's an interesting guy. It's not really like the coolest story, but he's someone I'm just, and like I said, maybe the story is what happens after this weekend. Stories for the final.
I mean, honestly, that's great because obviously there are plenty of storylines. The easy one, the Marta, but the fact that, like you said, the guy who got them a great start, and you would think there would be a person who would just be like, "Thank you for what you did," but truly, he's just like kicking it there.
And I think behind the scenes he's getting a lot of love. But I'm saying like we haven't really seen the like, and maybe like someone is about to drop this article, so like Andre Carlisle, great shout out, Jason. Like I know there's great people that cover that. There's great people that cover that team and like are big Adrian Gonzalez stands. But I am just like, I'm waiting for that article that's like Adrian Gonzalez, the Spirit's secret weapon. You know what I mean? It's like it just feels like he's there and he's like in the pub and no one's bothering him. I'm like, this guy is a genius, I think.
When this article drops, I can't wait. I will say I like the youth movement for Spirit, right? I think that picture of like 4 or 5 rookies.
McKenna Morris is from, well, I guess she's Maryland, not from where you're from necessarily, but she's local, and I think that's always really special. I think there was some great interviews. I think Andre or Annie Elliott, some more of those DC folks did at the beginning of the season, talking about her going to Spirit games as a kid, and she was only given a 1-year deal. She played with Hal at Clemson, Hal Hirschfeld, and I think she was very highly rated. I think she was taken in the first or second round of the draft, but like it kind of felt like she was a bit of an afterthought. And then these injuries pile up, and you see a rookie like McKenna Morris come through and just really take off in the second half, back end of the season. And yeah, like you said, I think that is an underrated thing. Is not only are the young players doing well, but it's almost like they had Croy for the first 2/3. They've had McKenna for the final third. They haven't needed everyone to go off at the same time. And that really is the sign of the best teams, is when you almost don't know who is going to be the match winner. And I think maybe Trinity looking absolutely knackered, playing with a back injury, like seeing her kind of being able to lean on some of these other players come through, I think is a cool story, right? Like we don't always need triple espresso to be for the NWSL to thrive, right? We don't just need the spotlight to be on the USA players, even though Trinity Rodman is obviously like an icon, one of the best players in the league, in my ballot for best 11. But yeah, I think it's really cool, like you said, to see the younger players breaking through as well.
It's gonna be a great match. Great match. Any predictions? I want to ask you to pick a winner? I'll ask you goals because I like to gamble. Do you think there will be more or less than 2.5 goals?
If you'd asked me before this past weekend, I would have absolutely said under. But now I'm thinking maybe hit that over. Because Banda and Marta just seem absolutely dialed in. We saw a lot more fouls called in the semifinals, which I thought was interesting. I think it was the most fouls called in Spirit v Gotham, which was very dicey. I think had 32 fouls, which was the most fouls called for both teams combined. The most fouls called in an NWSL playoff match in many a year. And I think if that continues, we might see a penalty. We obviously saw a late handball penalty in the other game between Orlando and KC. But I think, yeah, if we see the kind of the feistiness, the tenacity, and refs calling fouls, we have VAR now. Like, I think I could definitely see some set piece penalty goals. And I think the Spirit, although like the Gotham game was a little bit cagey and they didn't look like they were going to get goals, I kind of feel like if the Pride score early, which would probably be my predictions, Pride score first, I kind of believe in the Spirit to take the handbrake off and go for it. And then maybe we get, like a 3-1 or a 3-2.
That'll be fun. That's what I'm hoping for. More goals. Goals are fun. That's my whole stick. Goals are fun. The more, the better.
Sharpie is the one who has relaxed our show. We were grandpas, we were old school mindset, clean sheets, we love a clean sheet. And he was just like, that's old school. You need to move on. Just win. That's all that matters.
3-1 is the same as 2-0. The math of math.
And so we call that the Sharpie clean sheet. We basically just give up a goal, and it is what it is. Let's with the growth in women's sports in the last few years, we have kind of gotten, some nasty energy that we have come to expect from the men's sport. As someone who has been a part of it and probably has had this conversation, how do we handle that moving forward?
I mean, I think there's a clear line, right? Sexism, racism, homophobia, xenophobia, ableism, like anything I think is absolutely off the table and disgraceful. And I think social media is obviously like beyond just sport, somewhere where that kind of stuff, you can say it without any repercussions. So people just say stupid, offensive stuff. I think there is like a pressure and an attention element that is, I would not necessarily want to say positive, but like it's going to come, right? More people are watching your games. There's more money on the line. Like there's just going to be a sense of like, oh, you were rubbish in a big spot, or like, you bottled it, right? Like I think those, as long as it's about the game, as long as it's about performance and it's not personal and you're not like atting the player, it's fine to give your opinion on like how you think someone played the game. Whether or not I agree with you is up for debate, but you can say, X player who missed their penalty, didn't bottled it or whatever. Like I think you're totally entitled to say that, as long as there's nothing to do with their race or anything else, which is obviously not what we've seen when you look at players like in the men's game, Saka or Lauren James. I think two of the players who have had to speak out about this and have had to go through horrible things, which is absolutely not okay as it comes into the women's game. I think, again, comparing the English kind of football culture to American soccer culture, the kind of like, I think there is a little bit of disagreement, and I don't have the answer to this one, about how much of the like men's banter, which like can cross a line, but even when it doesn't cross a line, I think there's some people who are very resistant to the idea of like, when like a goalkeeper is lining up for a goal kick, right? And as they line up, the crowd goes, oh, and then when they kick the ball, everyone shouts, "You're shit." Like that was something we grew up doing in men's football games. And so that's kind of coming into English. And again, it's like, it's not about race. It's not about your orientation, but people are kind of like, should we be telling goalkeepers their shit? Like, should 10,000 people be like a genuine question? Like, is this good for humanity? So I think, and again, going back to like Virginia Tech, right? Like college football, there's a lot of that kind of like teasing each other. Again, even when it doesn't cross a line. So I think on the kind of the original part, like we've absolutely got to do better to stamp it out and make sure that like, women's football can not inherit something that's so toxic for the men's game. But I also think, some people are almost like overly sensitive sometimes about some of the stuff that comes over from the men's game. But then at the same time, I'm kind of like, well, I don't know, maybe it's just not very nice to shout your shit at someone. Like I'm getting older. I'm a dad now, and I do sometimes like think about what I was doing in the football stadium at like 18, and I'm like, would I do that now? Maybe not. But I also don't. I'm like you were saying about goals, almost like pro fun, and like if the players, I don't know. I'm kind of going in circles here, but like I remember Amber Brooks, former Spirit player, former Houston Dash player. She came back to the Dash after playing. She came back to the Dash with the Spirit. So she used to play for the Dash. She came back to Houston with the Spirit. And someone shouted something at her, not about anything to do with like her personage, but like you're shit, or like you're an ass. I can't remember what the quote was, or maybe it was like something about her dog. But anyway, like that kind of crossed the line. And it was kind of one of those moments and she kind of has like a tough relationship with Texas and Houston. She didn't like, I don't think she looks back on her time there with much joy, but that definitely left a bad taste in her mouth. And I think there was elements of that, right? Like, do we want that in the NWSL? And I think, again, stamping out stuff that is like needlessly nasty, but maybe trying to allow for like people being able to support their team. And I think I go back to Megan Rapinoe actually. When she was, I obviously covered the Dash a lot, so I keep thinking of things in Houston. But like Rapinoe used to get booed so much, and she would like drink it in, and she would like play the villain. And I love that. And I think the league needs more villains. But it can quickly cross a line, right? Like I don't know if those people are booing Rapinoe because she's good at soccer and she plays for Seattle. They don't agree with their politics, and obviously, like one is funny and one is not funny. So it's like, it's like it's very hard to hold all these things with grace while you're just trying to enjoy the football. But yeah, that's kind of like I guess maybe more than you bargained for with the answer.
That's a great answer, and it is hard. And like I think the ultimate sign of fairness is inequality is like treating female athletes the same way I treat male athletes. So
Right.
like, for example, the city match against Chelsea, right? Like Maya Ramirez abused Alana Kennedy. It was glorious. And I hated it because I'm a City fan, but I also appreciate it because she's a fucking bulldozer. And Alana Kennedy got wrecked. Like, and that just happens because when Erling Haaland did it, I loved it. And
You
I
said the same
joked the
thing,
defender.
right?
Yeah, he said the same thing. So I think like you just call it what it is. Like you said, leave out all the vile stuff. And then it's like, hey, this is a sports and this is what we do. It's why we love it, because you get to talk about things together in that community. And I think now like it has gotten better, right? Like over time, you say it's 10 years ago. No, we weren't in the same place in 2014, I don't think. So all we can ask was progress, but still a ways to go for sure.
Yeah, we when we started the pod, we had this conversation where it's just like we want to be critical of the player, like see what we were saying, and obviously we don't want to cross the line, but if someone was shit, we want to be able to say that they're shit without having to worry that we're insulting them or whatever, because sometimes you just play like shit. That's a general thing that everybody, athletes experience, and there is a thin line. And my big thing is we have a local baseball team here, and so I love going to those and doing like the light heckling, like their number, just saying their number over and over and over again. Best example of me heckling, and I made a huge fool of myself. I went to a Cards Cubs game. This is forever ago, and this is when they had Kasuke Fukudome, and he was out in the back, and I was in the bleachers, and I'm just talking crap to him, and I'm just saying his number, but he's not reacting. And all of a sudden, someone just goes, "He doesn't speak English, my guy." And they let me like yelling at him.
You go crazy.
5 innings. And then they finally were just like, "Bro, you're stupid." And I was like, "Okay." Well, then I just adjust so then I started saying this number, and I just like Fukadome. I just changed it, and that's what it is. Like in the end, I'm just here to goof around. Like, so thank you for telling me that I'm doing this the wrong way. I will just adjust it, and I will make fun of him this way. And that's when I got him to like turn around and smile at me and things like that. It's like you can have it both ways. Let's have some fun. It's intrigue, but
2023 World Cup out in Sydney, Australia, England versus Colombia. I was at that quarterfinal in the Olympic Stadium, and the Colombians booed England to the gods every time they had the ball. They would play 2 passes. England would. And I think it's quite a big thing in South America. Like you just boo when the other team has the ball. It was amazing. It was incredible. The Colombian fans, that was the loudest like I heard anyone out in Australia. And I think it was a great reminder of like, oh man, I would love to go to an NWSL game where just like the minute the North Carolina Courage were playing passes along the back, the other fans were just like it'd be so good. It'd be so good. So yeah, I agree. Like we need a little bit of edge, but just keep it about the game.
Yes, I'm with you. Let's talk a little bit national. Let's get to a greater conversation with the international side. Sharpie, this is your question. So if you want to.
Sharpie.
Yeah, we talked about some of these players earlier, like Bomati, Gurma, all these great players. I see the U.S. women's national team in Spain as the clear 1 and 2, and whatever order you want to pick between the World Cup win and the Olympics win. is there another nation that can kind of say, no, we're right there with them? Or do you think it's those two and then everybody else?
That's such a big question. I think
Thank you.
I think it's really just those two.
Hmm.
I think I mean, this might sound more defeatist, but I kind of feel like maybe it's just the USA. Just because
Really? Okay.
I don't truly believe the Spain Federation yet.
That's fair.
And I think, don't get me wrong, like USSF has, its skeletons in its closet, but with Emma Hayes, and she's not even a year into the job, you feel like the groundwork is being laid right to get them the best out of a very good squad. So Spain squad elite number one, Spain resources and what they're being given to succeed. I don't know.
That's a fair point. Fair point.
Brazil, I think, is another one I would chuck out there. Obviously, went to the Olympic final, went to the Gold Cup final. I really love some of the younger players coming through there, and their coach seems really good. I don't know enough. I'm not educated enough to know about the kind of Brazilian Football Federation, but I want to believe that team could kind of reach their potential.
Yeah, and of course, about your Lionesses, like, do you see Serena being able to make another run, or has like that they call it the golden generation, right? Is that the golden generation's moment, and now we're just kind of like on the downswing?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't put them in the conversation to kind of take some heat off. It feels like it's been a tough.
I had to bring it back. I'm sorry.
I'm hiding. I know. I'm just like hiding the Lionesses. I kind of feel like I think Serena's resume or whatever like speaks for itself. I'm definitely not like hating on Serena. I just think when you do have success, it's hard to like sustain that success, and it's hard to keep the same group of players together. Or sometimes like you maybe keep the same group of players together too long, and then you don't have the new players coming through, which is maybe more England's issue. So I have every faith that at the Euros next year, they should be a semi-finalist, and at the next World Cup, they should be a semi-finalist. But in terms of reaching that like top tier, getting to another World Cup final, there are just so many good teams out there, right? The international game is just getting better and better. So I think England are always going to be in the conversation, but they're not. I think where the US are at and Spain are at, with having younger players coming through and looking very, very ready to step in, England is like trying to figure out that role.
Gotcha. We'll see.
Okay. Well, I do want to get you added here with this final question, and it is hopeful on our end. So obviously feel free to answer this as honest as you need to, but I will say you can lie to me. Is there any chance that City catches Chelsea this season, or is it just business as usual for Chelsea?
Yeah, kind of a shocking weekend, right? I feel like I've never seen the WSL be called so early. It feels like it's just like people are like, it's done. Never say never. Look, like I think last year we kind of thought it was done, right? And then it went much closer than people thought. Even the year before, United kind of were technically in it for a lot longer than sometimes think. So I think the WSL is such a funny league because there's so few teams. It's like results can, losing to Chelsea is pretty devastating to your title chances, but it's amazing. Like if Chelsea lose one more game, right, to whoever, it just flips everything on its head. So absolutely not done, but the position they're in right now, you would, for the betting people out there, you'd have to say it's like a very, very good bet that Chelsea are going to win. I would not bet on City catching them, but I think there's going to be at least one twist just to like make it more interesting.
So you're saying there's a chance?
There's obviously a
I'll
chance.
take it. I'll take it.
I will. Well, truly, thank you for coming on, giving us a bit of your time, your knowledge and wisdom. Please plug yourself. Let people know where they can find you and the things that you do.
I'm everywhere these days. I'm freelance, so really just follow me, Instagram, Blue Sky at Theo Lloyd-Hughes, and I'm still on X, but I'm not really on X, Twitter.
Same.
So zombie Twitter at Theo Lloyd-Hughes, all one word, no hyphen. But yeah, I do podcasts for The Athletic and I write for Sports Illustrated. Oh yeah, subscribe to my newsletter, squaddepth.com. and the Squad Depth podcast. But I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I'm always kind of filling in stuff. So, but yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's been great to kind of properly meet you guys, and I really appreciate everything you're doing for the game on this side of the Atlantic, the other side of the Atlantic, men's, women's. It's great to like we kind of started the conversation, connecting with people that have that love. It's really important.
Yes.
Thank you so much, man. This is incredible. Like when he told me he got the interview, I was like, wait, what? You got Theo Lloyd-Hughes? Like this has been following me for a while, so
I've
really,
just
really
been
grateful.
busy. I'm just a tired man. I would have been on here sooner. I just got to get better at my DMs.
Better late than never. And also, what a family. What a family.
Yeah.
Shouts to Flo.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, Shady Gang, please make sure rate, review, comment, subscribe, all those things that I have to say in this modern game. Please do nice things for us to make other people find our podcast. Thank
It'll
you.
be great.
We will be back sometime soon with some episodes. You can follow us on all the social medias that we are on at Shades of Blue NW. But until then, you know the vibes. Shady Gang, Shady Gang, Shady